for Gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by.
Kirsten Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery. And
And
we have a
this.
guest today.
Yes, we do. Austin from Dragon Trappers Lodge is joining us. Hello, Austin.
How's it going? Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah, always happy to talk with you, Austin. Dragon Trappers Lodge, for those of you who do not know it, is one of the best Patreons that you could sign up for as a 3D printing enthusiast. You all make some incredibly animated and stylized models and a lot of stuff that you will never see anywhere because you all are madmen.
That's our goal, to try and make things you won't find in the monster manual. So
there's very little chance of that for sure, but the models are always awesome. I always like laugh my butt off whenever I see some of the crazy ideas you all put together, and then of course the poses themselves are just absolutely epic. And of course lots of dragons. It just ties into the name. There's lots of dragons.
Yep, gotta have a dragon for the Dragon Trappers Lodge, otherwise they're just a lodge.
So we're going to be talking with you, like a little catch up as to what you're all doing lately, what you're currently offering, but also like as a touchstone with somebody so successful in the industry, as sort of a state of the 3D printing industry episode, where we're gonna talk shop. We're going to talk about what we think about how the industry is, where it's going, where we'd like to see it go, and of course chat about what all the awesome things DTL is doing and why you all stand out and stand above in 3D printing.
Cool. Yeah. Well, where do you guys want to start?
Kristen, take the lead.
I think we definitely want to we might have first time people who don't know who you are. Mm-hmm. So, Austin, let's get just kind of that brief summary, how you got into gaming and how it led to DTL, and then what DTL's about.
Oh, dang. Yeah. How I got into the gaming. I mean, I used to play Risk every Sunday with my dad and cousins and stuff like that, and just do that every week. It was really fun. And then in high school, I met a friend who one time referenced Magic Missile, and we were all like, "What the heck are you talking about?" We're all imagining like a missile that's magical, and he told us about D&D, and we're all like, "We want to try that." And then yeah, that was pretty much it from there, honestly. I have a background as like a concept artist doing, freelance work for like animation studios and stuff like that. And I just love D&D. I did a lot of creature art, and the real reason why I started is because I'm such a stickler for like dragon anatomy. I love dragons, obviously, Dragon Trappers Lodge. And I would see these sort of more classic dragon designs where their wings looked like kind of like umbrellas, and it would drive me crazy. I would just be like, why can't anybody just get like wing anatomy right? And so yeah, I was like, I think I could do this pretty well. And so yeah, started it. And our first set only had 3 models in it, 1 trapper, 1 little mount, and 1 dragon. And then now we're up here, we are today, where we're putting out 2 different sets and loyalty models and all that jazz. So but yeah, we make all sorts of cool monsters, mostly D&D and wargaming focused. So it's fun. It's my dream job. I just get to draw monsters all day. So it's awesome.
And the way you mentioned it, you're right. Because when you first started, I grouped a lot of 3D miniature manufacturers into 2 categories. One is like the boutique designers, where they just focus on a few very solid miniatures with like super awesome art and super awesome posing. And when you all started, you were definitely like that. I like to point at Twin Goddess as another great example of what I would call a boutique designer, where Cobra Mode, wonderful choice there.
Yeah, Cobra's awesome.
Oh yeah, so like really artistic, really awesome one-off miniatures and small collections, wonderful to get. I love the boutique designers out there. And then on the other hand, you have the people like the Epic and the Titan Forge, where it's just the shotgun water hose of miniatures of the hundreds that you're going to get incredible value. And of course, also very high quality miniatures. Like everybody who's succeeding right now is doing like very high quality miniatures, like really great sculpts, really great artists, not putting anybody down, but like big teams putting out lots of models all the time, incredible value. You can't be beat. And you sort of started as one and then transitioned into the other.
Yeah, I guess so. Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
3 people, like just a 3-person set in your first one. That's wild.
Yeah, I think because I funded everything out of pocket when I started, and just I don't sculpt myself. I'm a 2D artist, so I do designs and concept art and stuff. And so I just hired some sculptors. When I first started, I didn't really have any understanding of like industry rates at all. And so I would just go on ArtStation and find sculptors that I thought were really good. But there's also not a lot of sculptors who like really knew how to sculpt for 3D printing at the time either. And so a lot of them were sculpting like way over detailed than um, what you need for printing. And so from the first like 6 months of working with artists, where like every month I would just take the money I made and put it into the next set, right, and just like grow it slowly. Um, from then till now, the budget is actually not that much bigger for the sculpting. I just got way smarter about how much it should cost for a mini to be made, instead of paying like blowing half my budget on a single model, because I was like, I guess this is how much it costs. But yeah, I don't know. It just was sort of long and slow, and for a good while, just not really making hardly any money, because I just would like put it all back into making the Patreon bigger, just so we could get up there. Because at the time when we started, it was also right around, there weren't very many people before us. There was like Artisans Guild was like the big one, obviously. Archvillain and Titanforge also started like right around the exact same time we did, roughly. And so it was like those guys already have, I mean, Archvillain came in with like a huge marketing budget, and Titanforge already had a big following before they did STLs. And so we were trying to like tread water and compete with those guys. And so we just had to put it all into getting more models and trying to offer more value and, you know, get people to look at us. So
Well, obviously, people did look, because your models ranges continue to grow. The art was already great when you first started, and has really refined into a very unique look for you all over the years. I'm looking at your Curse of the Traskvale Castle model line here, and you just need to glance at the miniature and you instantly know it's Dragon Trappers, because of like the posing and the absolute exaggerated expressions on everybody's faces. It's just so wonderful. Like you can tell that there's like an energy here. Do you control the art direction really closely when you work with your sculptors?
yes. So we have, I mean, it really starts at like the 2D phase. So it used to just be me doing the 2D concept art, but it was just like, I mean, doing like 30 designs a month was just like too impossible. It's like one a day, right? And so I ended up hiring some more concept artists. So we have like 3 concept artists now. And even at that phase, I'm always trying to push, like the main design philosophy is twofold. One, the model should tell a story. Like I want, when someone looks at it, to feel a certain way, like either they should laugh, or they should shudder in disgust or fear, or go "aw" or something, right? I want them to look at the model and have some sort of like reaction to it. And the pose and design needs to be able to read well at like table distance, right? Because like it looks good as a render, but we also want these to look good printed, right? And so even at a small scale, it's important that the pose convey a lot of attitude or personality, right? Like even if they're just standing there, they should be standing in a way that feels like there's an attitude to it of some sort, right? So in the sculpting phase, most of the sculptors are pretty, a lot of them have been there, we've been working with for a while, and they have got it done pretty well. Like they know how to, you know, reproduce our style and everything like that. But especially when we hire a new sculptor, it's a lot of back and forth to like make sure like, hey, this needs to look fun. Like it can't just look like a little devil. It needs to look like a little devil that's like fun and chaotic and has like personality and is like doing something. Like it has to feel like this thing is like alive, and we just took a picture of it and froze it in time, you know? So
And your most recent set has some rather direct cartoon influences, but is cartoon influence like something that has pervased, that has been present in your art style all this time?
yeah, I think I don't know, I just like a lot of fun stuff, you know, and one of my favorite board games is Zombicide, and like,
Yes.
and they do a lot of parody characters, and I don't know, I just always think they're super fun. They're always my favorite ones to play. And so when I get chances, I mean, our patrons vote on the sets, and I'm always really upfront, like, all right, this one's going to be like a Scooby-Doo riff, or we're going to have some models that are sort of like parodies of the Mystery Gang and stuff. And as far as I've seen, our customers like it just as much as I do. So as long as they keep enjoying it, I'll probably keep doing it. So yeah, it's just fun.
Wonderful.
I kind of like that you've added the troop element, because it feels like you've got like your, big pile of cool, like usable monsters, war game possibility, whatever it is. But then I think it frees you up to do something pretty wild with your other part of your set that as a patron, no matter how like out there, because sometimes you've done some stuff that's been out there.
Yeah.
But I've never been like disappointed by the total value of the set by like any means.
Yeah, well, that's good. I always try. My goal every time is, because every time we do a poll, there's always some people who voice their disappointment at the theme that won, and they're like, "Man, I have no use for this. I can't believe you guys are doing such like a weird theme. Why wouldn't you do something more like mainstream?" And my goal every time is that no matter what the theme is, that there's something that anyone could use, no matter what campaign they're running, to like try and figure out, like, no matter how weird or wacky the set is, there's something that people could find even if they weren't a fan of the theme. And so far, most of the feedback we get, I mean, in our Discord, is often like, all right, you sold me. I wasn't excited for this set, but now that I see the art or the renders, like, I'm on board. So that's the goal every time. Don't always hit it, I don't think, but we always try as hard as we can.
I think it was the Western set for me, because I was like, I don't know, I'm not gonna. And then I just saw everything come together, and there was the big, the train dragon and everything, and I was just like,
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
yeah.
What's the deal with the hand monsters? They're creepy. What's up with the hand monsters?
The pitch for that set when we had people vote was basically like, hey, we have sort of a bunch of art that we never use that's kind of too weird to fit in any specific set, so we're just gonna do like a Monsters of the Multiverse set where it's like sort of a sampler of different planes of existence where things are just weird. And so that's where that one was from, and that dates back all the way to when I was like a kid. In my sketchbook in school, I just draw these, like, you just, when you're a kid, you have like your hand monsters and they eat your action figures and stuff. I just always wondered, like, well, what does the rest of that creature's body look like if it had like the rest of a body? And I had drawn a doodle of it in my sketchbook a long, like I don't know, almost 20 years ago now. And I was just flipping through my sketchbook and I saw it, and I was like, we could totally make a mini out of this. And then we just sort of built the whole rest of the set around it with other weird stuff that we could fit in there. So that was one of those sets where we thought it was going to be a big risk, but it actually turned out to be a big hit, even though everyone who sees it is like, what the heck is this? But people liked it. So, and at FanX that we just recently went at, that was probably like the number one thing we got comments on, was all the weird hand monster guys. So
I mean, it certainly stands out. Like, you're not, you mentioned that you make monsters that you won't find in the monster manual. You never mentioned that would be holding the monster manual.
Sorry, say that again.
You would never mention that the monsters might be holding the monster manual.
Oh, gotcha. I see. Their hands, gotcha. Yeah. I always imagine like the big T-Rex one, like all the things you could describe it doing to your players. Flicking them across the board, picking them up and throwing them, smashing them. Slap them across the face, whatever you want. All sorts of reading a book to them. So.
So we're entering basically year 3 of the modern 3D printing era, which is when the resin printers became affordable and all these companies like yours spawned on up and grew and succeeded. What lessons do you think you've learned over this very brief period of time that seems to have also lasted forever?
Good question. I think what lessons I've learned as like a creator in this space, I think one of the big things I've learned is that it's important to look at like the zoomed out picture, because it can be pretty chaotic month to month as a subscription service. There's a lot of like fall off at the end of every month, right? And that can be like really stressful, especially if you're like a smaller new creator where you're like super hyped. You feel like you had a really good month. You gain like 100, 200 new patrons and you're all excited. And then the end of the month comes and you drop down to like 50 and you're like, what the heck happened, right? And it could be a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but just learning to just be like, that just happens. You need to look at like the zoomed out view of like, the last 3 months, the last 6 months, the last year, right? Like what's like the overall direction things are going, I think has been important. And then number 2, to just, there's always going to be people who criticize what you do or what you're making. And you shouldn't necessarily ignore those people, I don't think. You should always, be aware that maybe you're making something dumb. No one's gonna like it. But to also realize that if all you ever did was just make exactly what people wanted, there wouldn't be anything, you wouldn't be creating anything really. You would just be like regurgitating what someone else told you to do. And the whole reason people came to you in the first place is because of what you're making. And I think there's been a couple times there at Dragon Trevor's Lodge where like sometimes you can like lose sight of that, of like, well, the reason people like us is because we do weird, fun things. And if we tried to do less of that, then we're missing the point of like why people came here in the first place, So you always got to balance it. Obviously, you can't go too crazy because then people really will be like, what am I going to use this thing for? But I think striking that balance has been an important lesson to learn.
That is a very important point you mentioned there, though. People buy models for 2 reasons, I guess. 1, to have and or paint them, and 2, to use them in games.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have a use for them. So how have you all overcome that, where you all are releasing such very unique stuff that really doesn't map to anything anybody else? Like, you're not going the safe route of just, here's another Bugbear collection, here's another Goblin collection, here's another Warhammer Army proxy.
Right. There's sort of 2 ways to combat that. One is to provide stat blocks and adventure modules so that DMs don't have to do the work of homebrewing this like weird, crazy thing and trying to figure out like what the heck is this going to do and all that. They just have the stat block and they're like, sweet, I can throw this in my game. And especially if you have an adventure module that goes with it that we started doing, then it's like you can just run this one shot and now you have a use for it. The second thing that I actually think is more important than that is if you're going to make models that are out there and weird, you have to design a model that's so fun that when someone sees it, they make a use for it in their campaign. Like they look at it and they're like, I don't know where I'm going to put that, but I like it so much, I have to put it in, right? Because there's a lot of our models that like probably most of them don't fit into people's existing campaigns, right? Like they don't have planned for a hand monster or, for these different things. There was nowhere on their radar that like, I'm going to need this many. Oh, perfect. Here's a hand monster. You have to make them so good that when someone sees it, they're like, my campaign will now have a hand monster because I just love this so much. I want to put it in it. And I think if you can motivate and inspire people to fall in love with the mini, even without a use for it, they'll create a use for it. Because honestly, that's how I choose the minis I buy, right? Like sometimes I'll find ones I need, but oftentimes I'll just see a mini that I think is so cool that I'm like, all right, I'm going to buy that and print it and figure out a way to use it just because it's so awesome,
Yeah. From your October set, the mini that did that for me was the Boiled Maid. It's just so amazingly awesome and chaotic and wonderful. And I know that my players are going to always remember the time that this cackling hag rushed at them.
Did you read we put a little poem out with the with all of the ghosts this month. They each had like a little poem, like a nursery rhyme poem that explained how they became a ghost. Did you read it by chance?
No. What is it? You have it on hand?
I could probably, I can tell you the gist of it. I don't have the exact poem on hand, but it's in the concept art channel on the Discord. But
it is a crime. It's not in your description.
I know we should. That would be pretty easy. We should put it there. Basically, her story is she was a maid in Traskville Castle, and she was always a really grumpy and bitter, angry person. And one day she was, on a step stool leaning over her cauldron trying to reach some spices. She slipped and fell into the stew. And because she was so unlikable, no one really cared to look for her that much. They just thought she like went somewhere, and like no one really looked. And so they just served the stew up to the Lord's family, and it wasn't until they were eating it partway through that they realized there was like hair and teeth and eyes. And due to the fact that they just ate her and hadn't looked for her, she was angry and became this ghost that now haunts the castle's halls as she's still inside her boiling cauldron with its clawfoot legs that sort of gallop along the halls as she seeks to pull people into her stew to join in her misery. So that's the gist.
They're long poems. I found it.
Oh, you found it? Yeah, they're pretty fun. So
I did. It's quite long.
They are kind of long. They're also in a big long column. If they're
yeah.
spread out. It's not quite as long, but they are kind of long. But
Oh gosh, I do like it that you all go extra with your stuff, like with your little sidekicks that are really cool, the hoppers, with the fact that you go, you make sure that you have the stats, you have the R stats, you have the adventures, and then you're always doing like these little extra things. Like you mentioned that this month you're doing a quest.
yeah, so I'm actually super excited. I'm almost more excited about this than the actual release, just because even though we're not even selling it or anything, it's just really fun to do. We did one a little while back ago. The first quest that's basically like a virtual scavenger hunt. You have to like, follow the clues, solve the puzzles and stuff like that, dig through our different social media sites to see where we've hidden things. And we thought it was going to take people like maybe like a week, maybe 2, and they solved it in like 4 hours. We were like, okay, that's it. But it was really popular. We had a ton of people participate. Our Discord was super active. So we're like, let's do another one for Halloween. So this one is going to be, the puzzles are much more engaging and fun and bigger and harder. And the prize is also much bigger as well. So last time everyone who participated could win the Spirit Hopper, which was like a STL file we made for the quest. This one has 2 STL files you can find through doing the quest that are just free as long as you participate. But the winner, whoever wins and makes it all the way to the end first, the first one to complete the whole quest, will get all of that stuff there. So the Chronicle brush set, 3-month pro Lychee membership, 3 kilograms of Vulcan resin from Atlas. We're going to sculpt a custom model of whatever character or monster the winner wants, as long as it's fantasy themed, and that's going to get added to the welcome pack. So if they want a mini of themselves as a dragon, done. If they want their big bad evil guy from their campaign, done. Whatever, they'll still get our entire STL library. And then Things.com sponsored $1,000 Matter Hackers gift card as well. So it is going to be a big prize pool, and it's going to be super fun. So the first clues are going to go live Saturday morning at 10. We'll make a public post on Patreon and Tribes that'll be visible for everyone, and that's when it will start. So it's just going to go until someone wins. We'll drop a new hint every day, so that little tiny clues to keep it going. But you don't even need those clues to win. You could solve on the first day, I guess, if you're incredibly gifted. I would be so shocked if somebody I'd actually be a little sad if someone solved it on the first day, because this has been like months of prep and work and planning and writing and all this stuff. And so, but I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be super fun.
Listeners, rep the podcast well. Do the quest.
Yeah, I mean, it's free. You don't have to buy anything or sign up for anything. It's just fun,
Mm-hmm. And I do like it. That's a really good way. That's really clever. I'm digging it, and I really hope that you get a whole lot of participation, because I really like how you seem to really engage with your community and a whole lot. Like also like on Instagram and the different socials and on your Discord server, you're incredibly active.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I try to be. I mean, that's where I communicate with all my artists. So I'm like already on there every day, and so it's just easy to pop in and respond to stuff and say hi, Plus, our community is really awesome, So even when we make changes that they don't sometimes like, I found that they're incredibly respectful for the most part and really like polite, and it makes it so that I want to be around my community, because it's just like they support us. They always have good feedback, you know what I mean? And often have good ideas. Sometimes no offense, you know who you are out there, sometimes terrible ideas that will never be made into a mini, no matter how many times you ask. But sometimes there's gold in there.
Yeah, I want to know, because you were talking about free stuff and stuff you've done for promos and stuff. The Teletubbies, how did that happen? Because that was you talked about the minis that you had to use.
Yeah.
I am normally the serious game guy, right? Like I run a very hardcore serious game, but we had a pickup game, and when my friend Jude saw, I actually did a TikTok that actually got a lot of attention with your Teletubbies. And when I hit that, Jude was like, that has to be an adventure. We have to do it. So I did this whole thing where they had to go and get themselves to the Nightmare Realm to do this quest. And of course, that's what they fought in the Nightmare Realm, was the Eldritch tele horrors, I guess. Someone would get you legally.
actually wasn't even really our idea. That was someone. So we do commission models for people. We don't really like advertise it a ton because it's pretty expensive. We mostly do it for like game studios and stuff like that.
Sure.
But if people ask and we tell them the price and they're still down, then I'm like, sure, we'll sculpt your custom models. And this guy wanted that. He wanted the 4 Teletubbies as these big, giant, scary monsters. And for consumers, in order to bring the price down for just like the regular average Joe, we normally there's like a licensing fee if you want to like reproduce or sell the models. But if you don't care about that, you don't care if we retain the rights and we sell it or whatever, then we'll
Sure.
bring the price down because you're just printing it for yourself, and then we can still sell it or make money off of it or do something with it afterwards, right? So it makes it a little bit more affordable for them. And we were just sitting on them for a long time, for over a year, because I was just like, what are we gonna do with these? Like, they don't really fit in any sort of set, like, and we just weren't sure. And we had launched we'd set up an account on Thangs, which is a new like model platform. And so we're like, let's put them for free on Thangs, which for anyone watching, they're still free on there. You can go to thangs.com and look up our Dragon Trappers Lodge, and you can download them. There's 4 of them, so, and they're pretty big. They're on a 100mm basis, so
Yes.
they're
They are huge. I didn't realize how big they were, and I was like, "Holy crap! I can barely fit one on my plate."
yeah, they're pretty big. So, but they have really good, thick, chunky texture. So, like, if you wanted to scale them down, you could, and they'd still print pretty fine.
Dropped them to 15, and they still look 50. Sorry, 50. They look fantastic still.
Yeah, the texture will hold up. It's not like super fine, but yeah, that's where they came from. And we are like, well, let's just put it out. And they were way more popular than I thought they were going to be. That was our first week on Thangs, and it shot us into the top 1% of creators on in one weekend, just because we released these 4 Teletubby horror things. So, but yeah, they're not on anywhere else but Thangs. So if you're looking at My Mini Factory and you can't find them, that's why. But they're free, so you can just go pick them up. But if you do, give us a follow or something while you're there. So
I was gonna say, I definitely got like thousands of views.
yeah,
just showing those off. So
yeah,
It's amazing how like every so often that'll happen. Your Clockwork Dragon was another big popular one that got a lot of people's attention. I remember one creator did the Triceratops soldiers a little while ago, and that just like flooded everything. What do you think it is about what makes a model like catch like that and just sort of flood the entire community?
dude, I have no idea. If I did, I'd make every model like that. But I don't know. I feel like every time we release a set, the sets that I am most excited about do the worst, and the sets that I'm like, I don't know how this set's gonna do, blow up. So
same thing on my PDFs. Absolutely.
yeah, I have absolutely no idea. One thing that I always try, I kind of mentioned, is getting people to feel something. But if you can tap into sort of like the cultural zeitgeist, it does so much heavy lifting for you design wise, because people already have really strong emotions attached to these sort of cultural mainstays, right? Like Teletubbies or Scooby-Doo, or even just something like going like this with your hand, right? Like it already evokes such a strong emotion that it does so much of the heavy lifting for you with the design right off the bat. So I think the more that you can tap into that, the more sort of virality potential it has, because it resonates with a wider number of people, right? More than just like, I mean, if you can resonate with people outside of D&D, that's even better, right? Like the Teletubbies, for example, it's like, that's not just a D&D thing or just a Teletubby thing. It's like a bigger than that. People can look at it and laugh and be like, oh, that's so creepy and weird or funny or whatever, you know?
Although apparently Tetsuo did make them into Warlock patrons, so that's kind of amazing.
Oh, there you go. That's horrifying. No, interesting.
So we talked about a little bit about what lessons you might have learned from the past. What do you think the future of the 3D printing industry looks like? Where do you think it is going, and where would you like it to go?
Where it is going, to be honest, I have had my head down to the grindstone working so much. I feel like I haven't had like a super great pulse on what's going on right now as much of like what other creators are putting out. I have heard some of our consumers saying that they feel like just the market as a whole is getting stale, that like there's not as much creativity or uniqueness, and like things just feel sort of samey or repetitive, and like feels like there's not as much freshness. I don't know, because I haven't really been like sticking my nose out there and seeing what other people are doing as much lately. Where I think And I think there's a reason why to a degree, and I think there's a place that it needs to go. And we actually just straight up told our patrons this like a little while ago that like, hey, if you want us to keep making like weird stuff, it would really help us if on the months where maybe it's something that you don't necessarily have a use for, consider just supporting us anyways, because that's what enables us to take risks. If every time we take a risk we see like a huge drop, then it's like really hard for us to afford to do that in the future. But if on principle you like what we make and sometimes it's a hit or sometimes it's a miss, but you want us to keep taking those risks, then just consider supporting us as a creator, because we're not like these big huge corporations, right? Like it's a really small team. We're just doing this because we love it. We're not making like, I mean, maybe some creators out there are making like tons and tons of money, but we're not like making a killing, you know? And so I think that where it needs to go is for people to be able to sort of express that creativity more. And I think another way that will help do that is the expectation has become like the cheaper, like as cheap as possible and as many models as possible. And it's just, we even did that for a little bit as well, where we were like, we're releasing 60 models this month, you know, and it's only $10. And you can do it like once or twice to bring people in, but it's like just not sustainable. And I feel like competition has pushed it towards that. But the smaller creators I know that I've talked to that are getting burnt out, and even big companies where they're like, this is not completely feasible, you know, especially with like the cost of things going up and stuff like that. So I think probably an expectation needs to be set that like, this is a lot of work to make miniatures, right? Like you have to go through the concept phase, the sculpting phase. Like it's usually like from concept to finished model, you're probably looking at like 2 weeks of full-time work to make one model. And that's like thousands of dollars for a single model, from like concept to sculpt to supports to renders, like all of that, right? To get everything so that by the time it gets into your hands, it's like good to go. And I think maybe a little bit more of expectation that like, you're not going to be able to get 60 models for $10 every month. It might cost a little bit more than that, or you might get a few less models than that. And that's not like a ripoff. You're still getting a pretty good deal, right? I mean, getting even a dollar a piece for an STL, in my opinion, is like a steal for the amount of work it takes to make one, you know? But I feel like we're at a point right now in the industry where it's like the expectation is like 20 cents an STL, 30 cents an STL. And it's just, with all the competition, I just don't know how sustainable it is in the long term. And I think that's probably why you're seeing less creativity, perhaps, is because it's riskier and riskier to do that, because it's like people just bail. So I mean, there's obviously something to be said of like, you know, customers should, you know, be judicious with their money and like not just, I'm not saying just give me your money just because I want to make weird stuff, but you know, I don't know. I think that's probably something that's going to either have to change, or I think we'll start losing certain creators who are just like, I can't keep up at this rate. And I mean, we already have. There's some people that were my first patrons that I started supporting when I first started 3D printing. They don't do it anymore just because it's like they couldn't keep up with the expectation of like 20 models a month for, you know, their tiers at like $7 or whatever. And it's like, it's just too hard, you know?
Yeah, like you know, our friend of the show, Scott, you know, he got some burnout on that, and at Comet Lord, and he's been very
Yeah,
open.
that's who I was thinking of. That's who I started with. Was
I know he's incredible, and I think
Comet's
he's
does
probably
so
looking
great
to do
stuff.
some Kickstarters and stuff. And I was just kind of surprised recently because Monolith Arts, who does like Lost Souls and stuff, is one of the first ones I've seen in a long time go backward, where they did the Kickstarter model and they've finally been successful enough that they are now they just launched their Patreon and their tribes and stuff. But I think, you know, that's kind of an exception to the way we've been headed because of the pressure, right? Like, and it's not the model count too. You're also like the expectation that you have miniatures, that you have terrain pieces sometimes, like all these extra things, you know, and not everybody can keep up with that for sure.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty lucky with the support of our community. And like you said, I try to be pretty active, and I think that goes a long way of making people feel like they're willing to support. I'd say like maybe like 6 months ago, basically told our customers like, hey, we sort of fell into the same trap of just like busting out tons and tons of models, and it's been really hard. And some of you have commented that like they're not as creative or as fun as they used to be, or they feel more generic, and they were totally right, because we were just sort of like going quick, you know. And so we told them like, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to scale the amount of minis we do back every month. We're going to cut it down by like 30%, but we're going to make them like higher quality and really focus on like character and personality and story, and we're going to put an adventure to go with them so that it's more crafted. And we were pretty worried about doing that we'd get a lot of blowback, that people would be like, wow, you're going to keep the price the same but make less models, like I'm out of here. But we didn't get any negative comments at all. Like it was people were excited. They were like, yes, finally, like, because the truth is, if you've been printing for a long time, you probably have a massive STL library of prints that you have never ever printed and probably never ever will. And just, you know, more quantity isn't necessarily always better, right? Because it's just getting thrown on a pile of minis that you still aren't going to print probably, or like won't for a long time. But if you're getting less models, but every single one is like really good, so good that you want to print it that month, I think that's actually better. It's easier on the creator because, one, they get to spend more time on a single model, which is more fun. They get to express their creativity more, and it's just not as much like this crazy mad dash every month where it's like bust out 40-50 models and then wash, rinse, and repeat the next month and never take a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and people can support you and save money still at the same time. Like I don't shut up about annual memberships, but as soon as like that was kind of a push with you, I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. And because you've been consistent, your quality is good, and you do think things through. And I think that that's a great way to kind of put faith back in the creators if you can afford it. And it means those months that I have to pare down, which I kind of always have to pare down. I still know I've got you coming, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So.
And the way I look at it, and I've said this several times on the show, but when I look at a monthly release, if there are even just 2 models in that set that I want to print and paint, then I've way got my money's worth on that, and I just consider everything else a bonus.
Yep.
Yeah, I always try and think like, okay, if I can make every single model that one model for someone out there, that when they see it, they're like, I got to have that one model. Hopefully, I can get them to sign up, because it's, like you said, they can consider everything else a bonus. But
yeah. So Mayor Adams and the Cauldron Mitch, and I already got my money's worth for
there you go
this month.
Mayor Adams
old sets too, though. That's crazy.
Huh?
I said a Mayor Adams fan, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool.
That was us. I got a big check.
It's still Halloween time. Their monthly thing this month is incredible because you get their 2 old sets as well. So if you do need that many count, this is the month to do it.
Yeah. I just decided, I was like, I just like Halloween a lot because it's a bunch of creatures and stuff like that. And I was like, every year I just wanted to make the Halloween set really big. And I was like, but it's so like over budget. There's so much stuff. And finally I was just like, you know what? Let's just make Halloween our thing, and we'll just like lean into it. And this is our month where we can splurge and just make it really cool. And we'll make Halloween our month, and everyone will just come to know, hey, DTL's Halloween set is going to be awesome. So I don't fight the urge anymore to just go crazy with minis and designs and stuff like that. So,
and I'm super glad, because you all, for a little bit there, the first year or so, the first couple of years, it was like, oh, Halloween, it's time for the ghosts and the vampires. Oh, Christmas, it's time for all the winter stuff. And you all's Halloween set has always been so much more creative than that. Like the Teskerville's castle actually is leaning more into the tropes than I'm used to y'all doing, but it's so awesome. It doesn't even matter. Freaking the inside out armor. Just what the hell? Really, what the crap?
The armor mimics,
yeah, that's just insane. But then you go to look at some of your previous sets. I'm trying to scroll very quickly to get to them. Just like the freaking Halloween Weird World with the freaking hand monster hut and the oogie boogie freaking crazy things and the giant plants, and I have absolutely no idea what to call the freaking pumpkin golems with the cannons on their backs. I mean, you all just go nuts for Halloween.
I think it speaks a lot to like the market and what people want, because we always do polls. Every set is a poll, and for the Halloween one. Yeah, every single set will vote on. We come up with 4 ideas, and then they
Mhm.
vote on which one they want. And for the Halloween one, we were like, "Hey, look, here's some ideas. We could do like a vampire versus werewolf set, fairly traditional, but we're still gonna do like a unique twist, do some cool stuff. Or we could do this Halloween Weird World, and I don't even know what to pitch it to you as. It's just gonna be fun, weird Halloween stuff that I've thought of." And overwhelmingly, everyone was like Halloween Weird World. No one wanted vampires or werewolves because they're like, there's a billion of those out there. Show
Yeah.
us like the weird Halloween stuff you can come up with. So we were like, all right, done. We'll do it.
Well, the flavor and the personality you put in your stuff, actually, I kind of owe my involvement to 3D printing to that, because I think I was at Mythos right when they opened, and they had one of your dragons, and I was like, that is just so freaking incredible. And it was just so like, and it's funny because compared to some of your newer stuff, it was good, but it wasn't like jaw dropping. But like at the time, it was incredible. I had never seen anything like it, and the print was just there physically sitting there. And I instantly was like, who is this? Whatever. And I was thinking about buying it. And I was like, wait a second, though. Like, as much as they're trying to sell this for, I could get, for 5 of them, I could just buy the printer.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was like, I was hooked. Actually, I think I went out and got that Anycubic that I infamously destroyed 3 months later.
Well, it was good investment then, because we just gave them all these old prints, because I was like, hey, I just got these sitting around. I need to clear out some shelf space. You want to?
Yeah. Well, hey, it got me hooked.
Yeah.
Now I'm obsessed. So.
No, it was worth it.
So how many models do we get? Like you just talked about the pairing back. So how many models do we get with this October release again?
This October one has like 100, but like most of that is the 2 previous Halloween sets that we re-released for free with the current set. So we didn't have to sculpt like a ton more. It was just like, we'll just throw it in as a bonus for any new people who weren't here last year.
So speaking of unique creatures, you have a thing that is definitely your thing. And how did it happen? The hoppers.
The hoppers.
These are.
It's just another one of those things that was just like in my old sketchbook. Sometimes when I like run out of ideas, I'll just go flip through like my old sketchbooks and see some doodle and be like, oh, we could use that. And he was just in a swamp set, and they were super popular. People really liked them. And so we re-released them for the next swamp set we did, as along with some alpha hoppers and some mushroom versions. And people were painting a ton of them. Everyone just like loved the glow hoppers. And so we decided to start doing like a collectible glow hopper every month that fit that month's theme. So you can see here like a whole like cyborg glow hoppers and Franken glow hoppers and dinosaur hoppers and like all like kaiju hoppers, all these different types of glow hoppers. And we just did them for like over a year, and they've just been a big hit. But after a while, we wanted to move on to, we thought we'd do like another collectible type mini. So we'll be starting a new one in like December. And so what pair I'm showing here to sort of send them off, we're doing a Frontier that's, because when we released them, you could only get them that month. You can't buy them in the My Mini Factory store. They were only available by subscribing for the Patreon or Tribes that month, and that was it. So as like a final send-off, we're re-releasing the whole collection. So if you missed any of them, you can get all the ones you didn't grab, as well as some new ones that are just in this Frontier as just like a fun final send-off, say bye to the hoppers for now. And give people a chance to get any ones they missed. They're just, they're fun to make. They're really easy, and they're kind of cute. Kind of, I don't know. One person commented on our Patreon, they're like, "Am I the only person who hates the hopper design?" And I just commented and said, "Yes."
Yes. Well, they're kind of like, like if a Velociraptor, a Moogle from Final Fantasy, and like a chicken was like blended up into a little cute lizard.
I feel like people have in our Patreon or in our Discord described them as like frog chickens with a little bit of anglerfish in there. But basically. But they're just fun,
Oh, I do like it. I do think that, I don't know. I'm kind of biased here because over at OPR we've kind of also embraced the cute with their little buddies lately too, where like every set's coming with these little sidekicks unique to each army. And I just don't know. It seems like, especially lately, we're seeing a lot of like very comfy gamers going into, and like a whole. I don't know that cuteness 20 years ago was a thing that you could get a lot of gamers behind, but lately it seems like it's very easy to just get just about every gamer I can think of to just like,
Yeah.
and here's my cute
Yeah.
little hopper.
Yeah, one of our really popular Instagram posts was like just this little ooze with a sword and a backpack. And he's just like a little ooze guy. He's nothing special. He's just like the most basic sculpt ever. And it got like 10,000 likes. People were just like, yeah, the ooze guy. So yeah, and our most popular army, our most popular OPR army, I think, is the Fey Petal Courts, which is like like flowery fairies and like flower. It's like flower themed, right? And people are like crazy about it. So
those are amazing sculpts. Like seriously, I had just started my little like, I can't believe it's not Sylvaneth army, and those leaf wolves things that you dropped.
Oh yeah, those are so awesome. I absolutely love the leaf wolves.
Yeah, people like it. So I think there's also a lot more women getting into the space than used to be traditionally. And when they come in, it's just like a bunch of scary monsters, and some of them are like, hey, I like D&D, but I also like more than just scary monsters. Can we have some other stuff? And I think providing that, people seem to respond well. So
yeah, definitely. Like I've probably printed, like for friends who just wanted stuff to paint, I think I've printed more fairy stuff than anything else. So,
yeah, they've been popular. People keep asking us to go back and add more to that army. So I think, honestly, that one I'm like, I don't know what even else to add, honestly. But if people really want it, we'll go back and figure something else add, fun, cool,
What are your thoughts on the state of the 3D printing tech right now?
Yeah, good question. I feel like, let me be completely honest. I hate 3D printing. Okay,
really?
I love minis and I love making models. I hate like the hobby side of it, because when I print, I just want to click print and have it come out and be done. I don't want to have to like tinker. It'd be like if I needed to print like a piece of paper for something, and it was like, but isn't the fun of it spending an hour like opening up your printer, getting the paper? I'm like, no, I just want it to print. And so having to do all the post-processing and stuff is not like I'll do it, but all of our test printing is done by our support guys at Atlas. And so
Atlas are superheroes.
They do all the test printing for us. So when I print, I'm usually not even printing our stuff. I'm printing something I need for like a game,
right.
So, full disclaimer, I'm not like the most up to date on printer tech, because I've even just sometimes, if I need to print one of my own things, I'm not going to lie, I have totally just paid one of our merchants on Etsy to print our for me, because I'm just so lazy. I don't want to get my printer out and set it all up. But as far as the tech goes, it seems like to me, because I like try and kind of be aware, of like up to date of like, okay, is there anything new that we should be aware of that we need to accommodate, or what's the average printer bed size so we can make sure we're fitting our models on most people's print beds. It feels like things haven't gone anywhere, honestly. They keep coming out with like higher and higher K printers, but past a certain point, I feel like it's not really a significant difference in the print quality. What would really be nice would be like speed, I think, like printers that can print a lot faster, or honestly something like the form printers where the resin is like a cartridge built in that you put in the printer, so it's just not as like messy and toxic and all this stuff. Like I feel like that's the direction it needs to go to really innovate and be like the next level. But I don't know, maybe people are going to turn me up around the comments and be like, you idiot, didn't you see they just came out with a new printer that uses magic lasers from an alien spaceship and it prints it in one second? I'm like, I don't know, I guess I didn't know. But yeah, it feels like it hasn't, since I started printing, it's gotten like faster and higher quality, but not like that much now. But I don't know, maybe you guys can educate me. What's your guys' take?
Well, in the last 6 months, 6 months ago, everything you just said I would agree with. And then the last 6 months, I don't know what has happened. But both on the FDM side of things and on the resin side of things, they've had some really big tech breakthroughs where like all the prints are now twice as fast.
Really? What? Yeah, tell me what I need to get then, because
So I just picked up the Elegoo Saturn 3 Ultra.
Hmm.
This is on
Yeah.
the Ultra.
I'm writing this down. on my phone.
And what used to be like 7-hour prints for me are 3-hour prints now.
Wow.
And
Okay. Well,
And
then
it's
never
like
mind. I
the
take it
new
back.
ACF film and the new hyper fast print speed profiles and the new resins that are thinner, so they get under. Like it's weird. Like they're having to tweak the viscosity of the resin so that it will flow under the plate fast enough to cover the screen for the next layer.
Wow. That is, yeah, I did not know. Okay. I stand corrected.
And on the FDM side of things, they've got input shaping, where instead of just like printing the model how you think it should be printed, it's predicting the mass of the print head and how shaky the build platform is, and then like AI adjusting that print path so that it just prints a straight line when it would have been a wiggle, by like just compensating for like the movement of the machine itself.
Wow.
And then that has caused them to like literally triple in speed. So like what would have been a day printing is just a few hours now.
To be
Wow.
fair, Austin, I'm still waiting for these to drop a little in price before I go for either of those.
So the Saturn 3 Ultra is a $500 printer, but that would have been a $1,500 printer a year ago.
I mean, that was my first printer, which was a, I think an Anycubic Photon was about $500.
Yeah.
So that's,
And that was the little guy, right?
yeah, and that would be like a way better printer for the same price. So
Right.
I mean,
and this is a 10-incher.
The prices come down at least, so that's a big positive.
Yeah. So like just lately they've just like taken the speed dial and cranked it. And the tech I'm really looking at right now, side-eyed, is these full color resin prints, and there's like soon.
Interesting.
Like right now it exists at like $20,000 printer to do it.
Yeah. Whew.
Not quite within reach yet. but if those prices come down to $1,000,
yeah,
and then that changes some game if like full colored printed miniatures are available on the cheap all of a sudden.
The full colored minis, they used to be really like that sort of gritty texture, but I was at Gen Con, I was checking out Hero Forge's booth, and they had all their full color prints, and they are made like a massive leap. Like I was like, oh dang, these actually look like pretty decent. They still, the metal parts don't look good. Like it seems like you would be way better off either painting your own non-metallic metal or just using metallic paint. But like all the colors, I was like, wow, this is actually a lot better than it used to be. I still think for me, the thing that would really open it up to an even bigger mainstream base, if it was just, like I said, making the resin compartment, everything like internal, you know, even if you could get it set up where it like cleans the print inside the same machine, you know, even if it's a bigger machine and a smaller print bed, but it just will like, you know, rotate, go to the cleaning side, you know, come off, cure it, whatever. I think that is what's going to, you know, make it as easy to use as like a printer or a microwave or, you know, something like that. I think that would be the next big leap, because then it takes it from a hobby and turns it into like a tool or an appliance. And once it becomes that, then it's way bigger, you know.
There's a few companies pushing that angle right now. You mentioned Form Labs, obviously they're doing some really cool stuff there. There was that Mage printer line that was coming out that was like all in one with cartridges and built-in cleaning systems and all that jazz, but the price was like $2,000-$3,000 instead of, and that's a little bit outside of the hobby.
Yeah, $1,000 is like real pushing the top end of what most hobby people are willing to fork up at like the highest, I think.
And these production focused 3D printers are resin printers that are kind of catching my interest right now, where instead of targeting the end user, they're targeting businesses. So like it 3D prints the resin part and then like pushes the plate out and then flexes it and drops it into a basket and then prints the next part. So you just leave them running all night, and then you just have like wake up to 200 minis.
Yeah, that would be good. We're looking at getting physical production up for like conventions and stuff. That would probably, something like that would be great, because you don't want to be spending all your time just setting up the next print, you know, marking off the build plate, all that. When you get 5 of those running, it takes up a lot of time.
Because you weren't selling at FanX, you were just demoing, right?
No, we were selling at FanX.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just over there because I was there during setup, I think. So I don't know that you were done.
Yeah, I think you came over before the doors opened. But yeah, we sold a whole bunch of like blister pack singles and like boss packs and a bunch of stuff. So
I just saw all the pretty painted stuff. Was it
Mhm.
Chromatic who did the minis? Painting?
a bunch of I did some of them. Chromatic did a bunch of them. Alan from Bicephalo Art Studio. Chromatic and Alan are our two big painters, and then some of them were from some of like painters we worked with in the past, like Stephen Smith and Stephen Oakes, two big painters we worked with in the past. But right now, we work with Chromatic and Alan, and they both are awesome painters. So they do super great job and really help bring our models to life. You know.
Mhm. So we're running a little bit out of time, but one last question for you, Austin.
Yep.
The future of DTL. In your dream, what do you hope the future of DTL looks like? And
the future for what I hope looks like is like 5 times as many patrons as we have now would be, nice. If we're like at the, what, ideal, let's double that. 10, that'd be great. 10 times as many patrons.
add a zero.
Yeah, but also, sort of like dreams of like what would be really cool to do someday. Things that we will do someday that are in the works are like, campaign settings or like books and stuff like that. What I would really like to do is like board games, like a Dragon Trappers Lodge board game that, just has been like a passion project of working on in the background of just like, this would be fun someday, where all the pieces are injection molded and it just comes in a nice box. Or even like an animated series would be super fun. Just, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but like my background is in concept art for like animation and stuff like that, doing things like that. And so it'd be really fun to have like a Dragon Trappers Lodge animated series or something like that. Would be super fun, but
Nice.
Who knows?
What would your board game be? Would it be like a dungeon crawler like Gloomhaven or?
So, you gotta get me going off on this. Okay, so here's the idea. Here's what I have so far. Basically, each game you would pick the lodge, right? So the base game maybe have like 2 or 3 lodges, and each lodge sort of has like a slightly different, unique mechanic, right? And each player is playing a veteran trapper that's trying to build a crew, and they're trying to compete to become the new lodge master, basically build the most cred and traps and hunts and stuff like that, so they become the new lodge master. So it's competitive in the sense that only one person can be the new lodge master, but it's cooperative in the sense that multiple trappers crews can help take down the same monster, and depending on who contributed the most gets like the most resources, points, rewards. And additionally, as you play, you can spend resources to upgrade the lodge. So like, for example, maybe at the beginning you can only have 2 crew members plus your veteran, but if you upgrade the barracks at the lodge, well, now you can have 4, but it applies to everyone. So like, if you upgrade the barracks, you can have 4, but so can everyone else. And so everyone is helping to build the lodge and make it better, but everyone else benefits from it as well. And you're just trying to build your crew and essentially trap the most monsters. You can trap them by relocating them or killing them or recruiting some monsters. It depends on the monster, and depending on how you deal with the monster determines what sort of rewards you get for it. So that's sort of the gist of it. I think it would be a fun one, but
that sounds like a cool game.
Yeah, one day we'll get there. So
also sounds like a cool campaign setting seed as well. So I dig that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So shout out time. Where can people find your work? What would you want them to pay attention to?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, our Frontier, the Copper Collection, is wrapping up here on the 18th is the last day. There's 6 days left. So go ahead and check that out. That is on My Mini Factory. Just My Mini Factory, Dragon Trappers Lodge. You'll be able to see the Frontier that's going on right now. And then on Patreon, dragontrapperslodge.com/Patreon, oh my gosh, patreon.com/Dragon Trappers Lodge, where you can sign up for this month's set. And then, yeah, everyone should just come check out the quest, because like I said, it's completely free. You don't have to be a member of the Patreon or anything. Like, you don't have to pay for anything or sign up for anything. Literally just come, and at the very least, you'll get 2 free STLs. And I haven't said this anywhere else yet, but I told people that I might drop a little bit of some information about the quest. So I'll say this. One of the STLs is a mini, and the other STL is a prop. And it is a functional prop that will be used to solve clues in the quest that you will need to actually solve puzzles.
That's clever.
Like a Dakota ring or something, huh?
We'll have to try it and find out. But we also made it last time the quest, you didn't get the free STL until the very end. And we made it so that you don't have to go all the way to the very end to get the free STL. It's last time it was non-linear. This one is not linear. Or it was linear. This one's non-linear. So there'll be sort of branching paths you can go, and you don't have to spend a week digging through all the clues just to get the free STL. You can get it fairly early on with a little bit of dedication and teamwork and stuff. So come check it out. I think it's going to be super fun. We'll post about it on Saturday morning when it goes live. And yeah, who knows? You could win $1,000 gift card and a custom model.
You go watch the eclipse, and then you go do the quest, right?
Yep, there you go.
Like right after the eclipse window, I think.
Yeah, get in the mood, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. And thank you. And if you want to follow anything that we're doing, you can go over to PrettyShortGames.com. We're available on all the social and also on YouTube.com/Param. Chris, anything before we bounce?
No. You can always follow me on the TikToks if you want.
Can I do one more shout out actually?
Of course.
Yes, please.
I was just gonna mention I talked about a little bit earlier, there's this thing called Thangs, and we're trying to kind of get people to go over to it. It's basically a new platform for STLs, but the main thing that I think is cool about it is that instead of just getting the release every month, you get a number of downloads every month. So you can spend it on the models you want from that set. And if there's models you don't want, your downloads can roll over, or you can spend them on previous models from the backlog. So it's sort of like a build your own set every month. If you already have all of our models, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're like new and you don't have all of our models and you just want like a few models from the new set and some old ones, it's really cool in that way. So, and they're really, really good to creators so far. So anyways, that was all.
I almost forgot to ask you, is your open call for designers still going on for the module stuff?
Oh, for the writer, yeah. We haven't filled the position yet, but we're pretty close. But if someone got an application into me like in the next day or 2 or 3, maybe, I'll still look at it. Yeah. So we are hiring a new writer for adventure modules and stuff like that. So
awesome. You want game industry cred.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery. And don't forget to use your scrape protector.
And thank you, Austin, for joining us.
Have a good one.